Back if you are rejoining us after Louisa Copple's fabulous session just now. If this is your first session for day 13, it is a lucky one because we've gone from strategy with Louisa to change with Faith. It's a powerhouse female lineup of everything to do about changing your business at the moment tonight. So we are joined by the wonderful Faith Timbs, who's going to talk about managing change using the C word. And Faith helps organizations to achieve exceptional outcomes through dynamic, innovative change management solutions. She has a depth of knowledge of change practice, method, and process, combined with a proven ability to take an adaptable, agnostic, and agile approach to challenge. She has a reputation for finding creative, forward-thinking solutions combined with a systematic problem-solving approach to everything from organizational change management to communication, people leadership, and project strategy. She's a change management explorer, which I love. She's motivated by transforming and improving change leadership and practice through research, resources, discovery, advocacy, and provocation. And I think that provocation comes from managing change with the C word, because I was going, which C are we talking about? Can't be COVID. Oh. Faith, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Julie. Yes, no, it's definitely not COVID. I can assure you of that. We're not talking about that C word tonight. Let's put that to the side. So no, tonight I am going to challenge you to work with the best, most affordable and most accessible change tool that I believe exists, and it is curiosity. So no matter what kind of role you have, whether you are a CEO, an operational manager, a teacher, a retail assistant, an entrepreneur, an accountant, a project manager, a stay-at-home parent, or a recruiter, curiosity, I believe, can help you better understand yourself, better understand how to work with others, how to respond and manage what's coming in the future with creative solutions. And in fact, curiosity can even help you live longer, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So hopefully you've all come along tonight with a healthy dose of curiosity about what this great C word can bring to your ability to manage change as it races at you. So let's get into it. So we've all heard this maxim, right? Curiosity killed the cat. So curiosity gets a bit of a bad rap and the cat's not doing particularly well in this one either. But the reality is that curiosity created the cat. It's responsible for the evolutionary development of our cat friends and our dog friends as well, although they might dispute that they've done as well as they possibly could have out of this little evolutionary bundle. And it's also had a pretty profound effect on us too. That desire for us to know more, to explore and to grow has expanded our horizons and built the world that we live in. So, we see it in everything from, us every day, but down to roundworms that circle on their approach to food sources. So they're seeking the most information that they can find about the environment and the food that they're going to consume. It's everywhere in nature. It's surrounding us. As humans, we immediately begin our curious journey. So when we're babies, with no prompting, we have that desire to know. Now, what we want to know might be, how does this toy feel in my mouth, or how does this food feel splattered on my face? But it definitely is that curiosity in action. Jean Piaget said, we come to this world as tiny amateur scientists. And we see that in children. They want to grow that blank slate of their knowledge. They want to have it filled. And endless questions are the result of that, right? Research suggests that children aged 4 years, 6 months ask 42,675 questions per day. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's actually incorrect. That's just the questions that my 4.5-year-old asks. She's, a a little curious, but let me get the correct numbers here. No, 3-year-olds, sorry, ask an average of 100 questions per day, every day. Just feels a lot more when you're living through it. But sadly, that number actually drops to almost 0 by the time they reach 10. But not everyone stops being curious. We have great examples of entrepreneurs, of leaders in this world that are, incredibly successful, incredibly influential, and they cite curiosity as the key to that success. So people like Michael Dell from, Dell Incorporated, Microsoft founder Bill Gates, Deborah Bowie, CEO of Transforming Lives Through Charitable Giving, they directly credit curiosity with the key to their success. Now, we're not all aiming to be CEOs. That's not everyone's dream in life, but these CEOs are onto a good thing. They can see the benefits of exploring and embodying the desire to know more. And those benefits of curiosity are available to all of us. We can, discover what it can bring to us, to the people that we work and live with, and those who we experience change with. So this is the part of the night, right, where I tell you what I'm going to cover, and I give you the list and the learnings, and I, explain all of that. I put it on a nice slide and you say, great, okay, I see where we're going. I'm not going to be doing that. And I'm going to give you all one guess why. I want you to be curious. It's not a mystery, surely, but the medium is the message as much as anything tonight. So I can tell you, you're going to walk away with some practical tools, and I hope that you will be curious to explore more about curiosity when we're done talking. So top points tonight for posting in the chat: talk to me, talk to each other. Be curious about what's happening, what we're learning, what we're talking about, what you're learning from each other. We have got time for questions at the end, but ideally you are questioning all the way through. You are talking and learning. Please feel free to post and share questions anytime. Curiosity is encouraged. That is the point of the evening. So it's only right that we should start with the cornerstone of curiosity, a series of questions. They're questions for you, they're questions for me. So I want you to sit back, relax, and think about these questions. When was the last time that you felt really curious about something? Truly curious. Like, not, I'm going to get out my phone and Google that curious, but put hours into something, dedicated yourself to understanding it, made yourself feel uncomfortable. Today, I love that. That's what I'm hoping some of you came along and, to this session for that reason. Did you ask questions that made yourself feel silly, maybe? Did you seek out experts? Did you ask other people in your family, in your friendship circle, in your professional circle? And what did it take to spark that curiosity? What fired you up? You were up at 4:30. I love that. What fired you up? What did it take to get that going? And then what did it take to maintain it? To keep you asking, to keep you searching? A need for a better future. That's a big one. What does it take to make you persist when you feel uncomfortable? Was it easily snuffed out? From Helen, I got my hands dirty and wet and was concerned what I might find. Under the murky growth in my foundation thingy in the garden. Oh, Helen, I'd love to know what you were curious about there. So for some people, it sounds like there was some really recent curiosity, which is fantastic. And I love that people coming to this session are curious. But for some, It might be a while since you were really curious, since you truly felt the need to go and explore beyond what you can find on this little sucker. So why do we lose our curiosity mojo? What do we think? Thinking about your own experiences with curiosity. Why do you believe we stop being curious as we mature? There's some reasons here. Busy, yep. Busy, tired. We think we have the answers. Low attention, too much distraction. Told not to ask silly questions, social conditioning, seen, not heard. Absolutely. And that starts even as we come into our teenage years, right? We want to fit in. We want to not rock the boat. We don't want to stick out from our peers. We start to lose that curious nature. And we don't necessarily, tall poppy, absolutely. While we get that rush of dopamine from our, the reward of asking the question and getting the response, there's lots of things that outweigh that. We get poor feedback. Parents, peers, colleagues, bosses. Maybe it doesn't have to be negative feedback. It just might be less positive. We start to understand that asking questions shows that we don't know the answer. As we move into the working world, we don't want to show that we don't have the answer. And we also have our little friends in our pockets, our phones. They give us that easy and shame-free answer, right? Don't have to have anyone know that I didn't know the answer if I just ask Google. So there's lots of really fundamental reasons why we don't ask. Patriarchal society, I like that one, Karina. Yeah, it's, sometimes hard for women to ask in that room. One of the most visceral examples for me about someone who really potentially got the benefits of being curious, of understanding that and leveraging that, and then really lost that kind of benefit is Mike Lazaridis, so the founder of BlackBerry. And he, he had an amazing childhood where he was, winning prizes for reading all the science books. Super curious, comes out with an amazing product, top of the pops, amazing. Winner in all the games of life. And then we suddenly see him stuck. We've got a keyboard, we've got email. This is what our product does. Even in 1997, his engineers were saying to him, hey, we can put an internet browser in this. This could be amazing. Absolutely didn't want to understand the market, didn't want to be curious about what customers were looking for in that next step. And in 2011, one of his executives is quoted as saying, we laughed and said they're trying to put a computer in a phone and that won't work. And now we're 3 to 4 years too late. And they weren't just 3 to 4 years too late, they were completely missing the bus. And that laughter, that ridicule of curiosity and what it represents is one of the biggest barriers we have in accessing those huge benefits available. Is there someone that you guys admire or have seen miss the benefits of curiosity that you have in mind when I'm talking about curiosity that you can throw into the chat now? Admire Bill Gates. Yep, reads a phenomenal amount of books. Scott Morrison. My stepdaughter, close to home. I love that, Julia. My partner, never afraid to ask questions, loves learning things, generous with time to explain if you ask. Jacinda Ardern, yep. Yeah, I think There's so many examples where we see that understanding of the benefits of curiosity and what it can do. And there are so many examples too of where we've seen people and organizations miss out on those benefits. I think historically people like Kodak, where they missed out on that kind of digital photography evolution. I know for me personally, I feel like I've had plenty of opportunities to stretch my curiosity muscles, and I've seen a lot of success there, but I also know I have a lot to learn. This particular comic for me is one that I keep on my wall, and it reminds me daily that I think step number 6 is my mantra. Repeat steps 1 to 5 for the rest of my life. I will be doing that ultimately, and even though I think sometimes I've reached an age of wisdom, I know there is so much left to learn. A particular curiosity battle for me came very early in my career when I was brought in to do a work on a project that was really well progressed, but extremely in a state of struggle. They were not doing well, and it was a new system that was working across many locations. One team had selected the system and they were working downstream. The other team had not selected the system and they were working upstream. The first day for me was the day they installed the system. So that's the day you want to start as the change manager. It's always the dream for that to be number 1. And installed it working with the downstream team, and the upstream team immediately asked for training. So great self-awareness there, they need that. Immediately, no, that's not what we're providing. Only downstream is impacted. Upstream has no role to play in this. Few questions immediately. A little bit of curiosity piqued. Great. So these guys are putting information in, it's coming through to your system, but we're not training them, we're not providing any. Okay. A lot of red flags there, but a lot of opportunity to ask questions, a lot of investigating to do. So over a series of months, I learned a lot about the system. I did a lot of investigating, a lot of questioning, a lot of vendor interviews, a lot of developer interviews, a lot of integrator interviews. I became very unpopular. And that's one of the things about curiosity. It certainly, for me, triggered a lot of challenges in that space and really brought out for me how difficult it can be to be the curious one. I was certainly finding it hard to understand why there was such resistance to these questions when we really didn't have a solution for why we couldn't make it any further here. We rolled out to location after location, saw massive issues with the system. This sort of complex deployment wasn't working. We weren't seeing results. Essentially, what happened was, after a lot of investigating, turned out this was a franchise model that was being rolled out in a business that had a different process and system for every single location. Not an ideal situation, but it was a great opportunity for me to stretch my curiosity muscles and ask as many questions as I could and to bring that information to as much of people's attention as I could. It also highlighted for me the opportunities to ask questions, to be in there, before I even start the role, asking questions, and the pitfalls of the organization not asking those questions. Long story short, it cost the organization a tremendous amount of time and money. It eventually led to a massive restructure, a massive number of redundancies, a major organizational changes. It was an exhausting path to take to be the curious one, and it certainly didn't make me very popular, but my learnings were enormous, and it certainly proved to me the value of curiosity to satisfy not only the needs of the project and the needs of the business, but the needs of the people and to make sure that they were heard. It was an incredibly difficult lesson for me to learn, but one where my curiosity was both a struggle and a blessing. And as the comic says, I was repeating steps 1 to 5, not only in that project, but for the rest of my life. I've also seen where that curiosity piece works really strongly in the change world around the resistance piece. Assuming that different groups will fall into line in the resistance piece can be a dangerous game. So not only where they'll be in favor of change, but where they'll resist change. It often leads to some really shocking outcomes when you get to your engagement piece. I've seen people take the advice and the input of others and say, yes, this group is in favor, without any real investigation or any connection to questioning or really talking to those groups. No curiosity about why, what are their motivations for supporting this? And without exploring that, you're really just assuming, and you're missing the opportunity as well to get that great real information about why and how and what these people's motivations are. And that really helps you communicate and engage with them in the future. There's nothing like seeing your thoughts and feelings reflected back to you in the communications that the organization is making. That really reinforces and sustains that change. So that role of curiosity in the resistance management piece is, for me, fundamental. And I think it's something where we see a lot of assumption. But it's easy to not ask, right? It's easy to keep things calm and to not question. And I see you've been labeled difficult as well. I feel you. Yeah, I wouldn't go and change it. Yep, absolutely. It is a badge of honor, I think. But it is very easy for people to not ask. It is very easy to just move forward. We see it a lot, not only in our projects and our businesses, but even in our personal relationships. Questions are annoying, they're contentious, they're challenging. But I think, I'm not sure who said it, but someone said, the absence of conflict is not harmony, it is apathy. And to get out of apathy, to get curious, needs you to not only have that acceptance of potentially being the challenging one, but an acceptance of the fear of that too. To have a sense of humility that you don't know everything, but that you will ask, and to create a safe environment too, I think. So we're going to talk a little bit more about creating that safe environment in a minute, but we need some practical tools, right, to make this happen. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to take you through some tools now. There's so many good things in the chat. I just want to read everything. Can I sit here and read the chat for 10 minutes, Julia? Is that appropriate? Being curious can be risky for others. You might ask unanswerable questions or reveal a problematic assumption. Absolutely, Helen. I completely agree. I think some of the tools we're going to go through in a minute uncover some of those things and how you can sensitively ask and, support people through those questions. We need to be curious for today and for future generations. Yeah, absolutely, Karina. I think that is absolutely true and part of our responsibility. So let's talk about some tools. In any role, you're a leader, whether you lead yourself or you lead someone else. And being curious is one of the top leadership traits out there. It's absolutely essential. So whether you do this innately or you need a little, help and support, putting curiosity in your day-to-day just needs some practical tools, right? A few things that help and support you to do that. So the first one is, I think, one of the most simple but potentially underrated tools for self-reflection. We're going to do it together as an exercise, and it gets you into a bit of a curious space with yourself, and it's something you can then use with other people. And I think this is a good one for potentially working with people who, you know, you might be struggling to create a bit of a connection with, or who are struggling to understand how to get into that curious space. So it's called 7 Levels Deep, and it is very similar to the 5 Whys 6 Sigma process, but we're not looking at decision making here. We're just looking to understand ourselves personally. So there's a website and an app that goes with this, and I'll provide you with all of the links to that in the resource kit that goes with this event. But we're just going to do the activity today. This is really about pushing beyond the superficial stuff that we sometimes call curiosity and digging into the things that you don't have on hand. So let's do this thoughts exercise together. Just get comfy, take a minute. You can close your eyes if you want to or not, however you are comfortable. And I want you to think about the most interesting thing that happened today, or if you don't feel anything interesting happen today, something interesting that happened this week. And if you're going to hold that in your mind. So you can think about, why was that interesting? Now, thinking about your answer to that question, why was that interesting? Now we're just starting to get into curiosity now. So why was that answer to that? Why was that interesting? And thinking about your answer there, why was that interesting? Anyone getting annoyed with me yet? A little bit. Come see, come saw. And thinking about your answer, why was that interesting? And why was that interesting? And how is that for everyone? So I don't want you to share where you got to, but what I'd like you to share there is the one emotion that you felt associated with that activity. If you can put it in the chat, just one emotion. If you want to yell at me, that's absolutely stuck. Yep. Loss. Interest. Yeah. Mine is often frustration. Concern. Yeah. Yeah. So that one really forces you to go much more past that superficial curiosity and the easy question, right? Indecision. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I can't just say, oh, I met with someone that I train and I have a kind of, you know, a coaching relationship with. We had coffee and it was interesting. That's what I did today. It's like, well, why is that interesting? Oh, she gave me some feedback. Why? Why was that interesting? Well, it was about a program that I'm involved in. Well, why is that interesting? Well, she was really candid about how she perceived something and made me reassess it. And why is that interesting? Oh, well, I thought I really had the right approach. And now it's, you know, and it's, I'm not sure. And well, why is that interesting? Well, because I don't really want to have to reassess that. And I, you know, like it gets into uncomfortable places. It forces you not to cover the basics of what happened. Oh, I had a coffee and yeah, I got some, it was interesting. It's great. So easy. I can just emotionally brush over that. I have to actually delve into what that meant and what I might do with it and what it means. And instead, maybe I'm, reviewing something that fundamentally I was fine with. And now actually I think maybe I did want to. So there's just so much richness in that. And you get better at it as you do it more. You get more comfortable with the discomfort as you go along. And you get better at doing it with yourself. And then you get more practice. You're able to do it with other people with their permission, obviously. Don't just start like 7-ing people everywhere. That gets weird. But it's a great opportunity to really start just delving into where you're finding people are a bit resistant and they're not sure how to unpack that, and you can really practice that curiosity and digging further into it. You can also expand on those questions. So, it's not just like this why, but you might want to ask things like, and what else? So you're going down some other paths, you're opening up the opportunity for them to explore some other territory. You can ask that multiple times and see what else you might want to explore there. The only thing about the and what else is the tone is really important. So it's not and what else. Nothing accusatory there. Nice and gentle. It's just about really helping them and inviting the opportunity for more exploration there. So we talked a little bit about psychological safety and providing a safe place for curiosity. And what about when you're in a situation where that's not fully established? The Wright brothers were great at fighting terribly and then coming together to be creative and having, ironically, what they discovered was that they needed a propeller that spun in opposite directions to create flight. So that creative tension was exactly what powered them. And, while you might not have a space that has that creative tension, it can be something that's really healthy and that you want to start creating and start building. And it's a difficult thing when you're not in a space that has operated like that before. So starting to build some of that language in and find a way for it to be more comfortable is it's a baby steps process. It's something that we need to find the right words for, the right cues for, and start building people's familiarity with it. So I think some of the ways we can do that are using things like, can we debate? So debate brings a little bit of conversation, a bit of conflict, maybe something that's a little bit more of a, I've got an opinion and you've got an opinion. We're going to respectfully bring these together. It opens up an opportunity for new opinions and for you to ask questions. It is an opening only. This is not a game changer. We're not suddenly redefining the rules of the playing field, but it is a place to start with open-ended questions. It's a place to start building your curiosity kind of playing field. So at this point, we normally say, what? So what's open-ended questions? What are we doing here? And let's anything where we've got how, what, when, where, and why. Excellent, great. Let's do that. I think when we're building a safe space for curiosity, we want to be a bit more targeted than that and use our questions a bit more wisely. So my go-to questions in that space, what are we assuming here? So always talking about we're on the same team, we're collaborating on this, how are we working together, and what are we assuming as we work together? What's our playing field? Why do we do it this way? So what the things that we've been doing together, why are we doing that? What do you think? So inviting the other person's contribution. What if creating that blue sky space? So helping, to open up the conversation. And what might get in the way? So what are our obstacles? How can we start to have conversations about that? Does anyone want to offer their kind of go-to questions that they might use in that situation in the chat? Anything that they think might be something they'd use? What have we not thought about yet? Absolutely. I think, again, is that use of we. It's, you know, what else might come up? There's an unknown factor here. Simple, what else? Absolutely. Yep. You got it. And what else? How? What would Homer Simpson say or do? I love it. What would we do if we weren't? Yep, absolutely. How? Yep. Like to do the walk in their shoes. Absolutely. Yep. So I think once we've asked those questions, then the really important thing to do is to listen. Shockingly, listen. It's a thing we humans do really, really badly. There's actually a study that's just came out of Australia in the last couple of years that said that we actually have to be taught to listen as humans, to like effectively listen. So I don't know how many of you have actually gone on a course to listen. It's not something we ever offer to managers. So feels like it's not going around. So something we probably need to work on. But listening, and not listening to answer, but just listening to the answer. What are they saying? Taking in. We listened, yep. Taking it in, doing nothing else but listening, just taking that information in, taking in the moments that you're confused, the things that seem contradictory, the things that are unexpected. Note how you respond. What are the connections? What are the coincidences? Every bit of that, take it in, because the biggest thing that you can do, the biggest value the thing you can do to feed your curiosity and to have it valued by other people is to listen when you've asked your question, and then use those answers to stimulate more curiosity. So if you want your curiosity to be valued, you need to listen and then use it to stimulate more curiosity. Not just ask the question and throw it out there like it's a weapon, but actually use it in a way that is productive, that produces more curiosity, that encourages them to participate in the curiosity. And I think sometimes, I find as change managers, the question is almost out there as a nitpick rather than I'm trying to help to get more information into this room and for us to participate. Letting new information soak in before responding. Absolutely. We need to take it in. We need to process it. And I think that and what else question is really powerful in bringing out more information. And once you start creating that space for these sorts of questions, people are seeing you use them, seeing them work, then we're reducing that fear, that stigma, the challenging kind of space. It becomes more acceptable. Other people start using the questions. It is easier for these conversations to be had. So another tool for your curiosity toolkit, moving on, appreciative inquiry or inquiry, depending on how you like to pronounce your inquiry. You can use this individually, in teams, in organizations, places like World Vision, John Deere, hundreds of organizations use this. This one is hands down winner for me in all situations. It is built on curiosity, stretches your curiosity muscles. It is non-confrontational. So gets you away from this kind of I'm challenging you. It's a fight for me to ask questions. It's about exploring people's strengths and successes. It's built on two questions. What works and how can we do more of that? Fundamentally, that's what this is about. These are the three foundations of it: appreciation, inquiry, and wholeness. So really, appreciation is about what's the best in the people, what's the best in the world around us. So, you know, what works, what's good, what's happening here that works well, the strengths of our people and our organization. Then you have inquiry. So what are the questions we're going to ask? There's a 4D process that supports this. And I've given you the outline of that in your resource kit, but it's discovery, dream, design, and then destiny. So we ask questions, we learn from each other, we identify that vision for the future. And then wholeness. And this is the bit I really like, is that we have ideas that emerge from unexpected places. We're not on a predetermined path. We want to think about it with outside perspectives. We want to be creative. We want to, is it acceptable to ask, why does X work well? Yes, I think we could ask, why does X work well? That I'm going to give you an example in a minute, and that might help explain that a little bit more. But it's really about seeking those outside perspectives and bringing them in as well. So we get an answer that is about the whole system process, not just about we're solving this one problem. So to give you an example, say a school is they've got a library, and they know that children in the school with learning difficulties and dyslexia aren't using that library. It's not something that, you know, has been designed for them. They feel like they've got an issue with it. Instead of saying, what's wrong with our library that these students don't want to be there? So approaching it as like how we normally would. What's wrong with it? Right, we'll just solve it by doing this. If we were using appreciative inquiry, what we would do is say, we want to appreciate the best features of the rest of the campus and understand what are the strengths of these students that we can actually take advantage of. So where are the students comfortable? What spaces actually welcome them? So where do they feel like they want to be? And what are the strengths of these students? And so the question then becomes, how do we catch their attention and encourage them to stay in the library? How do we make this a space they want to be, rather than what's wrong with our library? So I think, why does X work well works in that situation, because you might say, well, why are the students happy to be in this space rather than this space? And what emerges from that when you talk, you know, when we encourage the outside perspectives of the students in this space and that space and that space, is we see where they're actually comfortable, where their strengths lie. They might lie in, you know, this community space over there, where they've built their own community and they're not connecting with this one over here. So what you end up with is a library that, you know, might not be a place for silent research. It ends up being somewhere that is more about, you know, conversation and community, that has, you know, chairs spread throughout it, that embraces different kinds of magazines rather than books, and has a broad range of use, so that you're actually catching their attention and creating spaces for them to stay. So it's about that co-creation with people and creating a positive way of looking at a problem, so that we're not just trying to, you know, have one solution. We're looking at all the positives that exist and going, how do we get more of them? What are the things that are great on campus, and what can we do to bring more of them into the library so that these kids have more spaces to be? So it's an awesome technique for co-creation of change. It brings those people into the process. And as we all know, if you're involved in the creation of the change, you are much more likely to sustain it over the long term. Such a conversation would have good energy in it. Absolutely, Helen. It really, people, you know, if they're talking about what's going well for them, they're much more likely to be positive, to be engaged, to be interested, rather than saying, well, these are the things I don't like about your library. That's certainly going to be a much more positive one. So on to my last tool to share with you tonight, motivational interviewing. So it's a tool in the spirit of counselling, But obviously, we are not counselors. And if you're working with anyone who is seeking counseling in the change space, I would encourage you to refer them for professional support. But the questioning processes in motivational interviewing are really powerful in helping you to put aside any assumptions that you might make and really help people to understand, you know, how they might make these changes. And it really respects their autonomy, their ability to decide, their decision-making processes. It uses a ton of the skills we've already talked about tonight. So asking open-ended questions, listening to responses, all of those things we've already talked about. It goes a little bit further in that we affirm what they've said. So where we talked about maybe people being fearful of, you know, expressing their curiosity, we affirm that. We say, thank you for being vulnerable. And then we reflect back to them what they've said. So just like the 7 whys helped us to dig a little bit deeper, we're going to reflect back to them and say, this is what I've heard. This is what you've, you know, said to me. So it helps them to affirm their desire potentially to change and to check the meaning of what they've said. Sometimes we need that. The great thing about this is then we get into a change talk space. And it's another thing I've included in your resource pack because I think it's incredibly helpful. But what the change talk does is help them to go through how they've changed in the past and how they actually feel about the change. So it's a great process for highlighting their strengths. So you've changed in the past. This is something you're good at. Prioritizing their welfare. So is this something you want to do? Is this something that you're motivated to do? And helping them to understand their own perspective on it. It is an amazingly stimulating process for their own curiosity and amazingly stimulating for yours as well, because you're really having the opportunity to learn so much more about another person and how they see change. And that can just be an incredibly enlightening process. I've used this for during a change when we've been struggling with actually understanding the motivations of people's responses. I've used it before a change to prepare a change strategy to understand people that might have been, you know, actually potentially in favor and opposed to the change. It really helps to just uncover some of the underlying motivations and to help people to explore that themselves. Now, some people might choose to change, some people might not, but it is really about just stimulating their curiosity in the change and allowing some space for some sense making and some exploration, which we don't necessarily do a lot of in change. We sort of see it as, you know, we just want to kind of en masse, like sheep dip almost people through the process. And I think sometimes a little bit of time spent here will save you a lot of time in the future, because we're really helping people to explore why they might make that choice. And the conversations that they have going forward can certainly be very influential in the longer term. I try to show people who ask me questions that I appreciate the questions. I find it encourages curiosity. Absolutely, Sarah, I agree. I think that's huge value for people, right? So my final share for you is this little one. Curiosity can make you money as well. This one's an Italian study. So these guys actually trained some entrepreneurs in curious thinking and talked to them about how they might pivot their businesses in their first year. And you can see the results. So these entrepreneurs were able to pivot their businesses regularly during that first year. And while they only, you know, made a small amount of money, it was a significantly more amount than the control group, who had no support to really help them to make that pivot. So it really does have an impact on your behavior and on the way that you assess and make decisions. So I'm going to leave you tonight with a challenge for your curious mindsets. There are 2 maxims on this page. The top one, little froggy one. So there is a frog. We all know about the frog. The frog will jump from a pot of boiling water and live. But if we put him in a pot of cold water and we slowly boil the water around him, he won't jump, he will die. Everyone's heard that one? We all believe it to be true, right? Sure. And we all believe, of course, that 70% of change projects fail. Sure. So I challenge you to further investigate these ones. Get curious, find out where they come from and why they're so readily accepted. Just a little bit of homework. And finally, I told you that curiosity was good for your health. So the National Institute for Aging wanted to see if this was true in the US. They studied 65-year-old men and women, and they found that people who are curious have better coping skills, they're better at solving problems, they have more and better friendships, and they are likely to live longer, more active lives than their less curious counterparts. So hopefully that motivates you to be just a little bit more curious. So I leave you with the opposite of fear is not bravery, but curiosity. And when we know more, we fear less. So ask the questions to know more and be fearlessly curious.